Welcome into a brand new episode of the Whole Story Podcast. Joining me on today's episode, he's one of the most respected coaches in the game of baseball, former manager of the Kansas City Royals and World Series champion in 1995 and 2015, Ned Yost. Ned, thanks so much for taking some time this morning to join us on the Whole Story Podcast. First off, how is your winter going?
Great, Alex. It's been great. We enjoy the wintertime. We love the outdoors. We love to hunt. We love to experience the cooler weather. And we haven't had much of that until lately. But we're just finishing up right now, processing all the deer that we took, filling up the freezers for us and some friends. And it was a great winter. So we thoroughly enjoyed it, and looking forward to the spring.
What was your favorite deer that you got?
For me, the favorite deer is the one that somebody else got. I've been able to shoot a bunch of deer in my life and some trophy deer, big deer. So I enjoy watching kids come out and bringing kids out and having them kill their first deer and their first buck. That's where my thrill comes. So, we've had a couple of kids that came out to the farm and did that this winter, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. Gives you a really good feeling to see the excitement and the joy and the beginning of a young man beginning to love the outdoors.
Describe to me the first time you shot your first deer.
Oh, well, I mean, that was a long time ago. We grew up duck hunting with our dad. And then when I moved to Mississippi, duck hunting was really good, but all my friends were deer hunters. So that's when I started getting involved in deer hunting. And I think, Alex, it's more about being in the outdoors than it is about hunting. It's always fun to kill a big deer, especially a big deer, but we love to eat it. So I get just as much enjoyment out of killing a doe, which is, perfect for management practices, than I do a buck. And a matter of fact, I will most times, 99 times out of 100, pass a buck so that somebody else that would really enjoy it would have an opportunity to shoot it. But I remember there was a lot of excitement the first time that, we killed that first deer back in the day. And we used to kind of put them in the back of the truck and parade them around town. We were so proud of them, and take them down to the firehouse so all the firemen can see it. And it was a lot of fun.
What did you enjoy most first? Was it being in the outdoors or playing baseball?
I think it's always been playing baseball. I think that especially when you get into the higher levels of the game, being in the outdoors kind of recharges your batteries. But I think, from the beginning, it was a bit of a struggle for me because I grew up in a football family. My dad was a little All-American at Santa Rosa JC, was an honorable mention All-American at Humboldt State. My cousin, John Woodcock, was, a 4-time All-State football player in high school. He was a 3-time All-American. He was a second-round draft pick. So football ran in our family. It wasn't baseball. And the problem was that when I started high school, I was 5'3", 130 pounds. My cousin Johnny was 6'4", So for me, I didn't have a growing spurt until my junior year. And so I had to find a sport that I could compete at. Football wasn't it. So my freshman year, I went out for football, which was the freshman team. Didn't play much. Went out for soccer, which I ended up getting cut. And then went out for track because I didn't really know what to do. So I ran track my freshman year. It wasn't until my sophomore year that I went out for baseball. The reason I went out for baseball instead of track is because I've always, every Little League, that I've been a part of, I've always made all-star teams. And I thought, okay, I've been pretty good at baseball. Let me go play high school baseball. So I ended up playing my sophomore year. And really, I tell a lot of kids, that have high aspirations, don't worry about the beginning, because that was my first year in high school baseball. I actually went 0 for 36. I didn't get a hit all year long. I came back and had to play JV as a junior, but that's when I started to take off. My senior year, I made all county. all honorable mention all state in baseball, but I still didn't have any college offers. I didn't have anywhere to go. So I walked on to a junior college in Northern California called Chabot Junior College, and they ended up redshirting me my first year, and then ended up playing my second year. But that's when I made a decision that, hey, I want to be good at baseball. I think I can be good at baseball. And really started working hard. If practice started at 1, I was there at 11. If practice ended at 4, I was there till 6. So I wanted to try to be the best baseball player that I could, and that's when I think the love really came into it, between my senior year and my freshman year in college.
You've also attributed to your development playing the game in high school to your summer job, pot scrubbing at a Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant. Besides getting the arm strength, what you've said before, what life skills, or any, did you learn that summer?
Well, I don't know if I learned anything that summer, to be honest with you. I've always been a hard worker. I've always been one that, if I get a job, I'm going to go and I want to get it done, and I'm going to work as hard as I can to get it done. But I was just amazed at the arm strength, because it was like working out every day. I was a pot scrubber, and the bottom of those pots, they're so hard to scrub. You got 20 pots. It takes, a couple hours. So you're scrubbing hard for 2 hours on those pots. And when I came back, the difference in my arm was striking. It was unbelievable how much strength I had gained in my arm, my throwing arm, and my whole upper body, really more on my right side, because it was pot scrubbing. I wasn't a very good pot scrubber with my left hand, but it just helped my development. That was the year that I kind of had a growth spurt, and my muscles started to develop, and I was a late bloomer, and it all kind of came together.
At what point did you know that you truly had a chance to play pro ball?
It was really, it was my freshman year in junior college. I think I went into my counselor, and I told her. She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to play professional baseball." And she looked at me like I was crazy. I had 4 eyes, 2 in my forehead and 2 in my regular eye socket. But I just believed it. She said, "Well, you're redshirting here. You're not here. You don't have what gives you that feeling that you're going to play some baseball." And I don't know. It was just a feeling that I always had. It was a knowledge. It wasn't. It was crazy, because I wonder if a lot of players have this. It was just a fact that I was going to play it. I had total faith in it. That this was going to be my path, and I was going to work hard to achieve it.
Obviously, throughout your career, you've always said this when you were a manager, that you just had the faith that things were going to work out. In the wild card game back in 2014, you said before, at no point in that game you did not believe you were going to lose. When did you realize that you had the, I'll call it, an intuition on certain things about your career or management and decision making?
Well, a lot of that stuff that you talked about depends on having faith and trust in your players, right? Because no matter how hard you try or how hard you believe, as a coach or a manager, you're not going to win a game. It's your players that win the game. And at that time, I had the ultimate faith in those young kids, because they had gotten to the point where, all of a sudden they had gone from thinking they could win to believing they could win. And once they believed they could win, that's a huge difference. That's a big turning point, when you can get to the point where in your heart, that you can win instead of thinking you can win. And they had reached that point, and they were extremely talented. And I just had total faith in their ability to battle to the end. And that's all you want. That's all you can ask from anybody, is that you just go out and give your best effort. And I had faith that those kids were going to do that. So, I had a lot of faith that these guys were talented players, that they were going to play right to the last ounce of energy that they had. And my faith was, evolved around that. Now, personally, I just always knew that if I could put my mind to it, I could get it done. And of course, I think I made reasonable goals. I knew that even though as much as I wanted to, I think, as I sit back today, I really wanted to walk on the moon. I mean, I really did. I wanted to walk on the moon, but I knew that wasn't an attainable goal. So that wasn't something, that I was going to be able to achieve. So I set my goals that I thought were achievable. I want to, first of all, become a professional baseball player. And then I incremented them. Once I became a professional baseball player, then my job was to get out of rookie league to get into A-ball. And then it was to work hard and play hard to get out of A-ball to get to AA. And then to get to AA to the AAA, and from AAA to the big leagues. And then from the big leagues to become world champion. And, it was always that mindset that even though I'm a part of a team, I'm going to do the very best. I'm going to give my very best for not only my teammates, but for myself and for my organization. And that was always my mindset, that I was always going to go out and do that. So in terms of those goals, I always had faith that I could work hard enough, that I had enough talent and ability to be able to reach those goals.
Do you feel like you can teach someone to believe in themselves?
Nope, I don't think so. I think it comes a time like anything else that, you can tell somebody to believe in themselves. You can tell them, and you can tell them. And until they really believe it, they're not going to understand it. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful point in your life to get to that point where all of a sudden, And I remember, even as a baseball player, I don't know if I ever really understood how good of a baseball player I was. I always kind of went back every day and lived and died off of yesterday's performance. And that's a rough way to live. So I remember it wasn't until I started coaching. I was, a minor league manager for 5 years, worked hard with the kids, loved the kids, became a bullpen coach for 8 years. But it wasn't until I became a third base coach when I started to understand about myself. And it was my second year as a third base coach. And again, the thing about being a third base coach in the big leagues is that you are as close to being a player as anybody on that staff. Your decisions can win games. Your decisions can lose games. I mean, like that as a third base coach, where no other coach has that ability to win or lose a game that quick, So there's a lot of pressure on that third base coach, especially when you're on a team like the Atlanta Braves, where I was, where everybody in the country is watching. You're expected to win. You want to win. And I had always reverted back to my mindset was I was as good as I was, I'm only as good as I was yesterday. And I got to a point where I finally understood that, hey, yesterday doesn't define me. I'm a good third base coach. Even if I have a bad day, if I have a good day, I'm a really, really good third base coach. And I took that knowledge. It just took all the pressure off of me. I understood who I was. I believed in who I was. And all of a sudden, now I could set about doing my job the best that I could because I trusted my decision-making now. And I wasn't wondering, do I need to be good today so that I can feel good tomorrow? No. I'm a good third base coach, a really good third base coach, and a bad call or a good call is not going to change that. You just go about your business every single day. And that's when I started to understand about myself. And I wish I'd understood that at a younger age. But that's when it became completely clear for me that, you know what, I'm here, I'm prepared, I'm focused, and I'm good. And, that you don't have to worry about that anymore. It is what it is.
When would you say you had the strongest love for the game?
I think I've always loved the game. And I think, my love for the game has really been exhibited here lately for me because there's a lot of the game that's changing. And for me, it really upsets me. I don't like that. I think this game was a wonderful game. It was America's pastime for 150 years. The way that the game was played, it never changed. You guys continued to play the game the hard way. They continued to get to the big leagues. And when you got to the big leagues, you were expected to know the game and to play the game the way the game should be played. And if not, they sent you back down to AAA. And now the game is so different. And a lot of it's good. Now you're developing at the big league level where you're taking players that aren't quite ready, but are really talented and letting them grow in the big leagues. The analytics side for me, it's got good points and it's got bad points. The way that they're changing the game in terms of sliding into second base, sliding into home plate, the instant replay stuff. Now they're talking about the robo umpires and stuff like that. It's not the game that I grew up loving. It's a different game. It's a different generation. I just loved playing the game. I loved working at the game. I like trying to excel at the game. I like trying to be, one of the best players, in my area in the game. And it was just always fun for me to be able to do that.
Do you think you still would have loved playing in the game, how it's transformed into what it is today if you were a player in this game?
Well, I'm sure I would, because, it's changing because kids are changing. When we grew up, I would leave the house at 8 o'clock and I wouldn't get home until 6 o'clock. And I'd be down the street. We'd be playing baseball. We'd be in a park. We'd be on the schoolyard playing basketball. We had a little baseball field set up. We'd go play Little League. There was always activities, and we were never, ever at home. We were never at home. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers. We didn't have computer games. So, we all of the stuff that we did outside as a group, and you learned how to be able to, be a part of a community, if you will, with kids. And there's a lot of things that you learn. There's kids, you learn how to compete. And quite frankly, you learn how to fight. You learn how to do things because you're with all these kids. You learn how to handle adversity. You learn how to handle, people that are mad at you and you're mad at somebody and all this stuff. And nowadays, the kids are more locked up in their house. They're in the computers. They're on Facebook. So it's a whole different generation of players. And, I think that the game has kind of catered to some of it. And, now all of a sudden, with the introduction of analytics into the game, people think that they can find a way to make the game better. But in my estimation, it doesn't make the game better in most instances. I mean, it could if it was worked, in the right instances. But for me, I struggle to see. Sometimes they talk about, especially for the pitchers, the analytics of the pitchers, how they're trying to change. Back when we came, everything was focused and predicated on fastball down and away and being able to execute your fastball down and away for a strike consistently. You went to bed thinking about it. You woke up thinking about it. Nowadays, it's just rear back and throw it as hard as you can right down the middle and try to get people to swing and miss at it. So for me, that totally eliminates any type of game plan that you try to put into effect for a pitcher, because now you hear pitchers or you hear managers say, yeah, he made a mistake and gave up a home run. There's no such thing as a mistake anymore unless you can execute your fastball and execute your slider and throw it for strikes consistently.
Ned, you mentioned there about you utilizing analytics in the right instances. How would you say, if you were managing today, what would be the right instance for you using analytics?
Well, I think you have to get to the point where you understand, who you are as a player, and then develop that talent before you start using analytics. Like, I think that Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, Tommy Glavine, those kids, analytics would be huge to their, to their performances, because they could execute all phases of the game. Now you bring in the analytics department that says, okay, this guy can't hit, a fastball up, and they can execute that. It's not just rear back and throw it. We've got kids now that are coming to the big leagues that have been involved in the analytics side, pitching wise, and every side session that they had and every bit of educational time they've had with pitching coaches has been backspin and ball spin and velocity on your fastball. And for me, that doesn't help you as a pitcher. What helps you is the ability to be able to execute down and away. And that's like getting in a fight. You always have a weapon when you get into a situation where you need to execute. You have that ability to execute. And, Greg Maddux always was the best at it. I remember we played a game in San Francisco and we were battling them neck and neck for the division back in the early 90s, and packed stadiums. We ended up winning 104 games that year. They ended up winning 103, and we went to the playoffs. They went home. That's how tight the race was. But it was like the fifth inning, and they got the bases loaded and nobody out against Greg Maddux. They had their 3, 4, 5 hitters coming up. And all of a sudden, to sit back and watch him strike out the next 3 hitters was unbelievable, right? And with the place going crazy, that they just knew that they were fixing to blow us out. So the next day I was standing in the outfield with Maddux, and I asked him how he did it. I said, "How'd you do that?" And he said, "Simple." And I said, "Simple? How is it simple?" And he goes, "Because anytime I get in those situations, in high pressure situations, a lot of fans in the stands, the level of noise goes way up. That means your excitement level as a performer goes way up. Most of the time, pitchers, their adrenaline starts pumping real hard and they try to throw harder. Me, I get in those situations and I'm going to throw softer. I'm going to throw changeup after changeup after changeup. And those guys who are geared up for fastballs, geared up with adrenaline, are going to swing and miss at it just about every time." And it made perfect sense. He understood, the situation. He understood what needed to be done to get out of the situation. Analytics doesn't do that for me. Analytics says, okay, this is how you attack that guy, and you attack that guy under any circumstance. It's the same way with the shift. I mean, analytically, we're going to shift a guy if he's a 75% pull candidate. And my question to the analytic guys were, okay, because he pulls 75% of the time, that's an automatic shift. Okay, what about that other 25%? If we're in the 8th inning with 1 out and we're tied, or we're down 1, or we're up 1 and there's a runner on second base, can this guy take the ball the other way? I want to know. Well, it doesn't matter. 75? No, I want to know. And those are the things that I'd always butt heads with. There's variables in the analytics, and I think at times, the analytical people want to take the variables out of it.
Or when did you realize that you were around greatness in Atlanta?
Oh, I think real early. When I first signed, I got a phone call from Hank Aaron. He was looking for a veteran catcher to go to Double-A and work with some young pitchers that they had there. And I thought I'd give it a chance. I was tired of bouncing between Triple-A and the big leagues, and I always thought about coaching. So I went, and the young pitchers were Tommy Glavine and Pete Smith, Kent Merker and Tommy Green. The young players were Jeff Blauser, Ronnie Gant, David Justice, Mark Lemke. They had the whole plethora of the young kids that would come up and be the centerpiece of 14 consecutive division championships. So early on, I could tell that this group was going to be very, very talented. My first year in the big leagues with Atlanta was 91. 1990, they were in dead last place. 91, we went to the World Series and ended up losing Game 7. So you could tell that real early on that we were in for a lot of excitement.
And Ed, I want to just shift gears, talk a little about your time with the Kansas City Royals. You were hired as a special assistant before you became the manager, and it's been reported, and I know you've said before, that time between when you were special assistant to the time you were a manager, you were able to get some form of a pulse on the minor league system and the upcoming players in the organization. When did you realize that you were around potential greatness and a good team coming up in Kansas City?
Early on that year, when I signed to be that special assistant, a special advisor, I went to big league spring training, and which was always 3 weeks earlier than the minor league spring training. So I sat back and watched everything in big league spring training. I evaluated all the players. I looked at their talent. Then once the minor league season started, I wanted to see players that I had heard about in meetings in the winter. I wanted to see the Eric Hosmers, the Salvador Perez's, the Yordano Venturas, the Kelvin Herreras, the Greg Hollands, all the kids that became the nucleus of a championship in 14 and 15. So, I spent once the minor league camp opened, I would be at minor league camp all morning and watch these kids perform. And a lot of time it was just from the tower. I just wanted to stand back. I wanted to see how they interacted with their teammates. I wanted to see how their work ethic was. I wanted to see their talent and ability. So I watched the entire spring and then got a real good feeling of who they were and what they what they would soon be able to accomplish. And for me, I've always been lucky. I think one of my little strengths that I have, and I think we don't have a whole lot of them, but we do have some. One of my better strengths is my talent evaluation. I can evaluate young players and see out into the future on if they're going to be the type of player that can help us win a championship. And I think going over it in all my years, I was never wrong, ever. I was always right on everybody. The only one I ever missed out on was Whit Merrifield. I never dreamed that Whit Merrifield would become an all-star. I thought Whit was going to be a very, very solid major league player, but I missed Whit. I never thought Whit would be the player that he is today. And, he's the one guy that, kind of messed up my record.
Did that surprise you that you missed on Whit?
Yeah, I mean, it did. I always knew that Whit was going to be a good player. I just didn't, when I looked at Escobar, when I looked at Kane, when I looked at Ben Sheets, when I looked at all these guys, Ricky Weeks, Prince Fielder, all these kids, when I looked at David Justice, when I looked at all these Tommy Glavine, I knew they were all going to be all-star players. I knew that they were going to be great. I didn't know if they were going to be Hall of Famers, but I knew that they would all be all-star type players and elite players in their league. And this was when they were all in the minor leagues. They were all little, right? And when they weren't producing, when Tommy Glavine was losing 17 games. So I've always had the ability to look at it and say to myself, this kid's going to be really, really good no matter what anybody else says. So, I always thought that was good. But Whit was the one guy that, that just he overachieved on what I thought he could do.
And this is the Fast Five Quick Round. It's one of my favorite parts of any interview I do. It's 5 quick questions, and you have as much time to answer them. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. You said this to employees when you first started, and correct me if I'm wrong about when this you stated this, but you basically said the days of getting out of the ballpark quickly are going to be over soon. When you said that, did you have a reaction that surprised you after you said it?
I don't think so. There was a lot of things that I tried to prepare, our fans in Kansas City, especially, and in Milwaukee, and it was back. And these are all my experiences going back to Atlanta where, the game would be over in a half hour, there would be no traffic out there, to the point where you'd have to sit there for 2 hours before you could even leave the stadium, and traffic would be backed up forever. And I tried to, when I came to Kansas City, and again, being able to see these young kids and being able to, push out in a couple of years exactly where they're going to be and what they're going to be able to accomplish. I tried to prepare our fans for what was coming, the excitement that was coming. But the problem was that they didn't believe it, that they had, been through so much misery, so much losing at that point that they did not believe, what I was saying. They didn't believe that young players were coming. They didn't believe, that, hey, we're going to have a chance to compete for a championship here in a couple of years. We just need to give them time to develop. And they, they said they had heard it all before. And it was even, I understood that when Greinke told me that we would never win. Zach wanted to be traded. I said, Zach, you need to stay here because we're about to win. And Zach goes, no, we're not about to win. I said, I'm telling you, these young kids, he goes, look, I've heard it all before. We're not going to win. I want to be traded. So, that's when it hit home to me, is that even the players, some of the older players that have been around that time, that really wanted to compete for a championship, that knew that we didn't have the talent, didn't believe that we had this great core of kids coming.
A quick follow-up on that. In your days as a coach, how do you shift the culture when the older guys don't buy into it?
They weren't there. That's how you shifted the culture. You don't buy into what we're doing, then you're not going to be around. And by that time, it got to the point where we didn't have any of the older guys that were really, really talented on that group anymore. It was all guys that were mainly fill-in players, allowing these young guys to get to the big leagues and bide their time before they could become successful. But, if you didn't buy into what we were doing, you weren't around long.
The second one for the Fast Five, what would be one position that you never really got to play too much of that you've always wanted to?
Pitcher. I wanted to pitch. I didn't understand how good a pitcher I was until I quit. And I learned so much from Greg Maddux on how to throw a changeup, on how to throw a two-seamer, on how to throw a cutter, on how to execute your fastball. I was really good at throwing batting practice. I mean, I was a good BP thrower. I could throw strikes, but to be able to manipulate the ball and be able to make the ball do things, was something. And for me, Teddy Simmons, when I played with Ted Simmons, the newly minted Hall of Famer, he said that every pitch that can ever be invented has been invented. That you can't invent another pitch. The split was the last one. So, my mindset has always been around, how can I invent a new pitch? And I've tried to get the ball to do everything, and I have yet to accomplish that feat. But I think if I had one opportunity to do anything else, I wish I could have pitched a little bit.
So let's say tomorrow you create a new pitch style. What are you naming it?
The Funky McNasty.
How did you come up with that?
You
were ready for it.
That was going to be the name of I had this pitch, and it was a great pitch, but it was more like a screwball. And I'd hold it like a knuckleball, and then I would crank it like a curveball. And it would spin like a curveball, but it would break totally the opposite way. And there was 4 times in my career that I threw this pitch that actually I hit major league infielders in the knee. They couldn't catch it because they thought it was going one way, and all of a sudden it would dive the other way. But it was more of a screwball than anything else. So it wasn't really a new type of break or new type of anything else. But I always knew that if I ever could, I had the name for the pitch before I had the pitch.
That's amazing. That's amazing. The third one for the Fast Five, how does Ned Yost quantify makeup?
How do I quantify it? It's huge for me. I mean, makeup is absolutely huge. And, I think you can develop that a little bit, but it still has to, it's like a seed in your body. Makeup is there. Now you can nurture it, you can water it, and it can grow, right? I don't think that you can plant it it's hard to have somebody to have solid makeup if they don't have it to begin with. And, the solid makeup is, again, all the stuff we've been talking about, the ability to believe in yourself, the ability to be a good teammate, the ability to have confidence when nobody else has confidence, the ability to keep your head when everybody around you is losing theirs. All of these things, the ability to fight to the very end and give your very best effort. That's makeup. To be able to, to have a clubhouse full of guys with tremendous makeup is extremely important. And we had that in 14 and 15. And that's why, you have so much confidence in that group. Our makeup and our chemistry was phenomenal.
The fourth one, what is your favorite away team clubhouse?
Oh, that's tough because they were, a lot of the clubhouses were really, really good. I always loved going to Philadelphia, even though it was in the other league, because the Philly cheesesteak sandwiches they made there were fantastic. I mean, they were really, really good. I always loved going to Chicago. The clubhouse was okay, but the city was fantastic. The Yankee clubhouse is first class from the second you walk into it to the second that you leave. Nowadays it's gotten, when we first started, when I first went to the big leagues in 1980, when the game was over, they'd have like a little tub of spread cheese, some crackers, and maybe a case of beer on the thing, right? Now, I mean, it's totally different. When we first started, we would get together and we would go to lunch as a group. You'd go 5 or 6 guys would go eat lunch, and then you'd catch the bus at 3 o'clock and go to the ballpark. Now players are at the ballpark at noon because there's so much that they've got chefs there, they got cooks there that'll cook you lunch, they cook you dinner. Everything is there for you. Anything that you can imagine that you want is there. So players, they don't go to lunch anymore together. They just come to the ballpark and eat. So the clubhouses have all changed and evolved tremendously. And it's really, there's a few of them that, you kind of dread going to, but most of them are really, really fun to go to.
And the last one for the Fast Five, Ned. If someone came up to you today and asked you for one piece of life advice, what would you tell them?
I would, for one piece of life advice, I would tell them that no matter what you do it to the best of your ability. And that doesn't matter what it is. We were talking the other day about, I talked to a bunch of high school kids, right? And they were preparing to start their season. And I was telling them about what it was to be a professional. And to be a professional player, you have to sign a contract. Now, that's what makes you a professional. When you sign a contract and you start making money to play baseball, now you are a so-called professional. So when you break it down, what does that contract say? That contract, when you open it up, it has your name on it and it has X amount of dollars. Now, if you read down the contract, it doesn't say we're going to pay you X amount of dollars for you to hit 25 home runs, 100 RBIs, hit 300. It doesn't say for you to win 20 games, strike out 200, have an ERA under 2. The contract simply states that they're going to pay you X amount of dollars for your very best effort every day. That's what a professional contract states. So there's no difference between a high school player and a professional player. The difference is they're making money, you're not. But your mindset should be the same, that you should give your very best effort every single day. And that's what it's all about. In anything that you do, in any endeavor that you have, treat people fair and give your very best effort every single day, and you're going to be successful.
And since a 15-year-old kid walked up to you right now and said, Ned, I'm never watching baseball. It's boring to me. What are you saying to that 15-year-old kid?
Go to Harvard and be an analytic baseball guy. And then you'll love it. I don't know what to tell him. I mean, I'm just like, you know what? I don't watch it either, to be honest with you, young man. It's hard for me to watch right now, but, it's different. I don't have any regrets from what I did. I feel like I gave my very best effort every day. I gave everything that I had to give. I understood at times. I never got unrealistic, even though we lost 100 games the last 2 years when I managed. It was about having talented players and developing talented players. And when you lose 100 games, it's because you don't have talent, that you're trying to develop the talent. And it doesn't matter what. If you don't have talent, you're not going to win. And it doesn't matter. You got to be strong enough to understand that as a manager and as a leader, and then, continue to push these guys to be the best they can. They just don't have championship talent. So, to be able to understand exactly who you are and where you are in life and what you can accomplish, I think is important. And, I can see at times where people, don't want to watch the game. I can watch the game for about 2 innings and then I turn it off, because there's times where, guys they're not executing. They're not playing with the level I think that they can play with in the big leagues. And, I turn it off. So, if a young man doesn't want to watch the game, try playing the game. It's funner to play it than it is to watch it. And, a lot of times I tell people, Right now, and there's a lot of things that you can do in baseball. And I tell, people, my grandson will probably be big in baseball because my grandson has not one cell of athletic ability in his body, not one cell. But he's the smartest little son of a gun I've met in a long, long time. So he's going to be in charge of an analytic department in baseball somewhere. I mean, that's just the way that it is, that these people are really, really smart and they understand, they break down all the percentages of winning and losing. And I think we still have a ways to go to kind of meld the two to get the right balance, but hopefully it'll get there.
Well, Ned, I want to say thanks so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today. It's always a joy to talk with you.
I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.